Good evening, good afternoon, good morning, wherever you are. Welcome. Welcome to Facebook Live. It is June 23rd, year 2021. I hope everyone is having a fantastic day today. It has become summer here in the US. So where I live, which is Dallas, Texas, it's become hot and humid. So dealing with the humidity and the hot weather, I'm sure that is the case all across the country. Welcome, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. We are joined today by a few members of our panel. The others are away or on their way. So fingers crossed that whoever is on their way makes it. I'll give like a brief introduction. We're joined by April, who is our psychic on the panel and a spiritual teacher. Welcome, April. And we're joined by our incredible Eileen that not only gives her insights and wisdom, but also has done an incredible job keeping us streamlined. So I actually did not have a question today. Very strangely so. One of the things that, so I've told everyone on the panel, and some people on the Facebook group may see that there is a guide up above on the group about this digital product system that it's a coursework that I've subscribed to with Dean Graziosi and Tony Robbins offering a course. And after the course, we actually get a chance to put in either do workshops or do coursework ourselves, right? So what they say is the knowledge industry is like one of the main industries that's going to take off. It's going to be billions of dollars worth industry in the next few years, right? So one of the things, April, that he says is like the main premise of his offering this method or this platform. He says everyone has a mess, and we talked about it during group meditation on Sunday. That he uses this. He has a very good way. Dean Graziosi has a very good way of putting words together. So he calls this is your way to put your mess into a message, right? So do you agree that everyone has a mess that, and the reason why I want to talk about it is I do see some flowers blooming in this group. So when I come to Eileen, I'll talk about it, but you want to talk about this? That what is this mess to a message?
Yeah, I agree. We all have a mess that could be a message for sure. My life has, it's recently, well, it did settle down for a moment. But my life would be like, there was times where I would go into work and I would tell a coworker, I'm like, okay, listen to this. And the things, the events that would take place in my life were just insane, just crazy. Just all the things that I have been through and that has happened. And, but I think, for me, my life has been very difficult. I've shared that on the panel that it's been very difficult. I've had, a lot of, there's been a lot of different types of like abuse in my life, and that's the mess. And I think that when you are able to go through that mess and then you're able to figure out the meaning, the purpose, find the higher ground, find the grander purpose of it, then that is where the message comes out. And that's where the message for me has come out in, trying to find the reason for all the things that I went through in life. And then, that is my message that I share, that you can keep going, you can make it, you can heal from these things. So, yeah.
Awesome. So do you think that anybody, whoever it is, no matter what background you came from, no matter what you suffered, there is something, there is a purpose out of that mess that you can co-create, right? And
Yeah,
bring about
absolutely.
abundance.
Absolutely. I think everybody has their own mess. Some people call it their cross to bear, um, you know, but I think we all have our own mess. We all have our own mission. It's in a different form. Like my number 3 daughter, she was the daughter that was severely bullied in school. Well, I also had some bullying that I dealt with, not to her extent. So for her, that's one of her passions. That's one of her messages that, she tends to carry. So yeah, I think all of us, whatever it is that you have dealt with in your life, whatever lesson that you have had to learn, whatever obstacles you've had to overcome, those are your message, or can become your message to heal the world. And I think that's where, many of us, we get that passion, we get that idea.
Beautiful. Thank you. And that's what, at the beginning of the year, I kept saying that the intention for the group is that we bring peace, harmony, and abundance for all, right? What I feel like, being so connected to source, that there's infinite abundance, just like what Abraham Hicks talks about, right? The abundance is infinite. It's for us to experience it. There's enough for everybody that is on the face of this earth right now. There's not like, oh, if Jeff Bezos got what he got, that he's taking away the wealth from somebody else, right? Everybody has that capacity to attract that wealth. It's just that we have to go over transcend our, what Eckhart calls the external, right? Freedom from externals is what Eckhart calls it. So thank you. Thank you so much, April. So one of the huge successes for the past 2 years, and you've consistently been with the group, you've started your own way of, almost get that image of what Eckhart and Jack Kornfield talk about, this Buddha that had clay all over it, and some monk finds like a little chink, and then he starts to chisel away at the clay, and then he finds this golden, huge 60-foot golden statue of the Buddha. You seem to be one of those. I know Marla does the same thing, but you seem to be one of those, Eileen, that has been chipping away, and now you're finding the gold within, right? So you want to talk about, and also talk about your podcast, what you've started out of that whole journey of the past 2 years. And then I'll come back to April to ask about her journey. What has it been? Go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, going back to the original thing, I do think that we all have our own mess. I mean, it's just different messes. And I think that anyone and everyone has a message to share. They might just not realize it in their present moment. But I do think that that is true. And I love the way that April kind of described that. I do feel like I changed significantly over the last 2 years. I know I'm totally a different person, but I'm happy with that. Grateful for that. Grateful for the journey, the beginning, the middle, the end, all of it. Everyone that's been there for it all along the way, and things that have come to me as a result of that. So yeah, one of the things is that I have a podcast now with another member, Jillian, who was on here quite a couple months ago, I guess. but we have a podcast that's centered on teaching mindset and mindfulness. It's really about, I think it applies to adults, especially since the people that we're really speaking to, which is parents and teachers, because our vision is to be able to have kids know this information, know the true power of their beliefs, and be able to live in the present moment. So with that being our vision, I feel like we do have to kind of reach the adults too, because you have to be able to live like this to be able to teach it to others. So although we're gearing it towards parents and teachers so that it can be shared with children, up until this point, we're 10 weeks in, up until this point, it's really applying to anyone. But occasionally, we'll talk about strategies that could be used in school or at home with children. But I really do think all humans can do this. They really can. It's just, it needs to become more widespread.
And it's, so what method did you use? The one thing I saw is you consistently have been there every Friday. I mean, now recently you've missed a few, but consistently for a period of time, every Friday, every Sunday,
yeah.
we're there for a group meditation every Friday, every Sunday. And then you do Ryan's work as well, right? Ryan Astheimer is one of the panel members as well, who also moderates the Community in Presence, Eckhart's Community in Presence group.
He's also a meditation teacher in VR. So I do group meditation every Friday. It's just sometimes it's on Zoom and sometimes it's in VR. I kind of like alternate back and forth because Ryan is the teacher who teaches on Fridays.
Okay.
And the only other night he teaches is Wednesdays, but I'm here on Wednesdays, so I always miss him on
We'd
Wednesdays.
much rather have you here on Wednesdays. Yes, you're more important doing that.
Sometimes I can get a little sliver of the group meditation with you guys too, but sometimes it's like back and forth. But yeah, I meditate 3 times a day. I meditate when I first wake up. It's the last thing I do before I go to bed. And there's always at least one other meditation in the day. It just alternates on whether it's, conscious breathing exercise, inner body exercise, or it might be some type of nature meditation, or it might be in VR. I do virtual reality meditations with Ryan and some of the other teachers for Evolver. Probably about 4 nights a week. So, and I find that even group meditation in VR it still has that group effectiveness. I definitely get something totally different from group meditation than I do from just there myself. It's like that combined energy. So even though we're all over the world, I find it very, very helpful.
Awesome. You're doing an incredible job, and wishing you tons and tons of success doing this mindfulness podcast for children to improve the lives of children, right? Teaching parents, and great vision, great vision. I'm sure it's going to change, right? Over a period of time. You may be doing this and then you go into something else after it. But this is, like, you're exemplary. The other person that I've seen change over the past year or more that I've known, Terry Potter, who is in the UK. She's taken the conscious parenting course with Dr. Shefali Strawberry. If anybody has heard about Dr. Shefali, she's written the book Conscious Parenting. I think she's written a book on awakening, most recent Radical Awakening. Most recently, her therapy sessions are based on Eckhart's teachings. That's how I connected the two. She is very, she brings a lot of his terminology in the way she speaks, right? So I see Terry doing lots of incredible work as well. She's doing some kind of clubhouse, getting people together and talk about some kind of topic around parenting. So we do have a question. Okay. Thank you, Eileen. Did you want to read the question, Eileen? And then April can answer it.
Yes, I can. And I'm interested in hearing the answers because I don't know that I've heard this before. So it says, I love Eckhart's discussions on flowers and consciousness. Would anyone like to share their experiences on the miracle of flowering?
Thank you, Eileen.
Well, ironically, this was this kind of goes with what you were just talking about, and in what my next answer was going to be. So, yeah, when Eckhart's talking about the flowers and consciousness, what he's trying to do is he's trying to one, all over the spiritual community, you will hear connect with nature. And the idea is that we used to be connected with nature much more than we are now, much more than before, kind of one of my biggest pet peeves is when I drive through a city and I watch them build a new shopping center, and then there is one over here that's empty. And it's very like, I'm like, you guys, quit putting so much cement down. Stop, use the old buildings and let this stay grass and trees. So one of the things Eckhart is doing is trying to get us back to nature, which we, some of us don't have as much right now, because that is a space of stillness. That is a space of oneness. It's a space of calmness where you can center, where you can be with yourself. And while the tree is silent, it's not silent. It has an energy that it projects of love and calmness. And then he's also pointing to, if you're able to kind of step back into the body and just kind of sit in the body and be in that presence. I have been able myself to experience going out right here on my front porch, and I live off of kind of a main road, but even in that, looking at a blade of grass, I have been able to connect with or breathe in with that presence of oneness, just with that blade of grass. And that's what Eckhart is pointing to when he's talking about the flowers and consciousness, is trying to see that life, that energy in just a petal on a flower. So that's one aspect that he's pointing to with that. The other part, which goes along with the earlier questioning, was, kind of like my journey here. As Eileen was talking, I kind of just had this thought or this realization that while for a couple of years when I would go to my job and I would sit in my office and I would see clients, I kept getting this thought, this like I should be doing more, right? There's something more I'm supposed to be doing. I have like all this knowledge because I just have this addiction to learning, and I should be sharing this. And as she was saying that, I had this kind of realization that if you would have told me 2 years ago that I would be sitting on this group on a panel and it's got how many members? Really? That is not like, that is a flowering. That is a growing. That is consciousness coming through you and moving you in a direction when, 2 years ago, I'm just getting this, like, you're supposed to be doing more. And now I'm doing what? So that's also part of the flowering, the miracle of flowering experience. This is consciousness flowering through me allowing that to happen and to create whatever is meant to be created.
You're amazing. Thank you so much. Beautiful, the analogy. So that has been your experience. So how was your, like I've seen Eileen like day in and day out for the past 2 years, right? So I know her journey. How has it been for you for the past 2 years? So guide us through just like what Eileen said, right? She went through a trauma, she took up herself wanting to do her own meditation. So even before she joined the group, she was doing meditation on her own and had done the Power of Now, right? So there already was a seed in her, right? She was already a bud. And now she's like that bud is opening up, right? Yeah. Like it's completely exposing itself to the sun. Her light is shining through.
So what happened with me is, as you guys know, I grew up in a household where there was a lot of anger. My dad had a lot of anger, but my dad was also somebody that he took me with him to class. He would take me with him, right? Wow. So that even though children aren't allowed in session at college, my dad would take me and he'd take my brother and we'd go. That planted a seed in me to all the education that planted that love of learning. But I grew up in a very angry household, and then I was forced to get married, and I was married to an abusive person. So the first seed was when I finally was able to leave that marriage, all I wanted was peace. I just wanted peace. So that planted in me this thirst, this drive to seek out, well, what is peace? Right? That is my that's the beginning right there, is all I wanted was peace and happiness, which led me to massage therapy, to Reiki, to readings, to energy, and then, life continued and I got with the person that I am with now. And I realized in the middle of this relationship where it's not abusive, but we kind of do our own thing. So it's kind of like two 80-year-olds living together where he's on this side and I'm on this side. Well, wait a minute, my life isn't bad. I'm not being abused, but I'm not happy. What do you mean I'm not happy? I have a job. I got my degree. I got this. I got kids. So there it is again. Now I'm seeking again. I'm searching again. So then I start reading books, Eckhart's books, and I'm listening to Abraham Hicks, and I'm just devouring, like while I'm doing dishes, while I'm mopping the floor, I'm folding laundry. I am listening like all day long. I'm learning and reading. So that was another major thing. And then I started to really do more meditation, do more. So I do a lot of meditation. I will do visual meditation where they walk you through guided, a lot of sound meditation. Sound meditation for me. So I'm getting up early in the morning. I have a very sensitive stomach. I've got to be present for clients. I turn on a sound meditation for stomach, and 10 minutes, voila, I'm okay. I can work, right? So I truly believe in sound meditation. And that is my journey. And then, as I said, I would be sitting at work and being nudged like, okay, you soaked up all this knowledge. Now, what are you going to do with it? Are you just going to keep it? So I, as well, one of the other things that I do throughout my days when things get a little bit difficult, because as you guys know, I raise girls. So is I breathe. I breathe a lot. I remind myself a lot that this is just for this moment, that I am not just this human person, that I am a spirit, that I'm part of source. And because of that, I'm always okay. So these are the things that I do. And this is, I still listen, I still read, I still do the meditation. While I'm doing notes for clients in the background, I put on sound meditation and I just listen to that as I'm typing notes. So these are my practices. This is what I do.
Awesome. You are incredible. That was like an amazing story, April, of a journey, right? Of someone that could have gone like the wrong path and look where you are right now, right? And what you're blooming into, what you are flowering into. So beautiful. Thank you. Thank you for sharing that. Eileen, did you want to say something about Danny's question? Then I'll
sure initially what the question was asking. I hadn't heard that about that concept before, but I'm glad that they asked, because then I got to hear April's explanation. Kelly actually also commented on the post, saying that flowers of consciousness is a direct link to the lotus flower of consciousness, blossoming in Buddhist spiritual progression. So that's another one.
Thank you so much, Kelly.
But I don't think that I necessarily have anything to add, but I did enjoy learning something new.
Beautiful. Thank you. And I'm thrilled to know that Kelly's online, and I'm sure Louise had messaged that she'll try and be online. So at least she's traveling, I think. So at least support us online with comments. So I think this flowers and consciousness comes from chapter 1 of A New Earth. That is where Eckhart mentions, if you look at the Darwinian way of how life blossomed on this earth from that single-celled organism, if you watch, I don't know if it was Planet Earth or one of these National Geographic documentaries, it almost is like algae stuck to a stone. That's the single-celled organism that had started life on Earth, right? We are stardust beings. We were created out of that Big Bang, right? All the stars, almost like an explosion, and that explosion creating out of the minerals, creating the single-celled organism. So just imagine the whole Earth full of some kind of single-celled organism and rocks, and then starts the next, maybe there was some grass, maybe there was some other creature that it evolved into, right? And then he talks about how these flowers would have come, like think of a field of lavender, right? And how that is like the blossoming of what was a single-celled organism, and then evolution step by step, just like the fish, because the water was maybe 90% of the earth was water and everything was a sea creature. And then the water started receding and there was more land. So now this fish had to make that evolution, right? To learn how to like kind of half be on, so that amphibian stage, like that lizard, amphibian, frog is an amphibian. So they're like partially in water and partially in land. So look at that evolution. So that flowering is a sign. That's what he says, is that flowering is a sign of how life evolved, right? From that single-celled organism into, now look at this beauty that got created. And then the other aspect of the flower is, look at what is consciousness for us? What is loving kindness, compassion, gratitude? those qualities are very soft and delicate. Doesn't our beingness feel like very soft, like cottony, soft within when we are filled with loving kindness, when we are filled with love, when we are filled with unconditional love, right? So that flower is showing that same delicateness, that same softness. So that's another image of the why the flowering of human consciousness is the same as the flowering of the flowers, right? What is the comparison between flowers and consciousness? That's the other part. I feel as human beings become all the more, just like April and Eileen, here you're seeing two flowers with your eyes, right? Like during group meditation, I see a lot more fellow members that are flowering over month after month, year after year, right? So each of us has the capacity to flower. And that's what he's signifying, that as consciousness develops within us, as we generate more and more consciousness, as we increase our presence power, then the world around us starts to also increase in presence power. The other example or analogy of that is, I think the Buddha is said to have held his first lesson was he held a flower up, and one of his students looked at the flower and started to smile. Most of his students didn't know what that was. And that one student, when somebody asked, why did you smile? That student said, by looking at the flower, I could see myself in the flower, right? So the fact that we can feel this unity consciousness, it's very easy. One of the things that we discussed during group meditation was we watched this video where Eckhart talked about gazing into each other's eyes. And it's very easy to gaze into a human being's eyes and experience the unity consciousness, right? That like our presence merges into the other when we're looking into their eyes. It's very hard when you're looking at a flower or looking at a pen or like a small object. When you're looking at that, to feel that unity consciousness, look at a stone, hold a stone, and feel that unity consciousness. So that's what he's talking about when he says, this feels like flow. How can we allow this to unfold? Life consciously, and I'm increasingly aware. And was there more said, Eileen?
No, it's the question is like the second half.
Okay.
In the very last sentence. So they say, we often speak of experiencing life consciously, and I'm increasingly aware that the more this occurs, the more I am aware of consciousness wanting to experience me in the form. This feels like flow. How can we allow this to unfold?
I'll let April answer that, and then I'll let you answer that, and then I'll answer that. How can we allow this to unfold? Go ahead, April. Thank you, Eileen.
Yeah, I think you just answered it. You just answered it before you knew what the question was. Yeah.
That's like the second time that's happened tonight.
I know. She's talking and I'm thinking she's answering the question. She doesn't even know that's the question. Yeah. I mean, and that is how you do it. You try to see whether it is you're looking at somebody else or you are looking at the pen or the paper. I want to say the word try, but it's not even a try. You allow that experience, you allow that presence to come through in all things, and you allow that oneness consciousness to flow in all things. And for me, when I do that, it erases judgment. We are taught judgment in this world, and it's not always a bad thing, because we do need to judge whether something is hot or cold. We need to judge whether the cup is full. You know, they teach us in preschool, is this bigger or smaller than that? You do need that knowledge. So it's not always a bad thing, but we just take it way off the deep end. We go really crazy with the judgment. But when you practice this oneness, this centering, this namaste, this we are all one, then it removes that judgment. And until you remove the judgment, you can't see love. You have to remove the judgment to see love. When I can see love, then I can see each other. I can see you and me and you. Now I can see oneness. Now I can see consciousness and I can feel it. Feeling it is within the body. And I believe actually, if we, with what like Eileen is doing, if we can start to feel that first, now we have the answer. Start to feel that oneness first, that consciousness first, that link, that thing that links all of us together. We feel that first, we'll be less apt to make those judgments. That is where I cannot wait till we live in a world where we do that, where that is how we function on a daily basis. So, and how do I let this flow? That is how you let it flow. You being present, being in the present moment, not in the past, not in the future, just allowing what is right now, removing that judgment and feeling that connection and that energy.
Phenomenal. Thank you. Thank you, April. Eileen, did you want to talk about this feels like flow? How can we allow this to unfold?
Yeah, I was just gonna say that allowing it to unfold to me would be always living in the present moment. I think if you're fully in the present moment, sorry, I'm having notes passed to me by a child. They're like trying not to say anything on video, but then passing me notes. So, but truly being in the present moment. So making sure that you're focusing on being and not doing. This is a lot of the stuff that I talked about in my podcast episode this week. It's like everything's just merging together. Because that is when consciousness has space, has room. Do you know what I mean? Does that make sense? I hope that makes sense. Because we naturally, unfortunately, due to conditioning and past experiences, we do in 90% or more of opportunities live subconsciously. So I think in order for it to be a state of consciousness and being aware of like and allowing that to be, you have to be in the present moment. And then consciousness does flow through us.
Awesome. Beautiful. Thank you. Thank you, Eileen.
You're welcome.
So this feels like flow. How can we allow this to unfold? I would say the same as Eileen, that the more presence power we build, so everything becomes an unfoldment of that consciousness, right? When we wake up, the gratitude with which we wake up, we are grateful for the fact that we woke up, right? And then maybe we brush our teeth, but what, just like Eckhart says, right? Feel the toothpaste in your hand. Then you're feeling consciousness from within you flowing into holding the toothpaste in your hand, and you're squeezing it onto the toothbrush, right? And then you're brushing your
Laughing at what you're saying. Oh my gosh. Because I was going to unmute myself to say the exact same thing.
We are syncing.
And I have proof because I actually said that in my podcast. I talked about all the tools at the end of the podcast, all the tools that you can use to make sure that you're being in the present moment. There's lots of things. And that was one of them, just like taking a mindful shower or mindfully brushing your teeth. And then you just started talking about it.
Remarkable, right? How all this works out. then make your coffee, like really watch the sound of the coffee, the water falling into your cup, right? How it smells, how the coffee smells. Like we become, it almost is like all our antennas go up, right? The ear, the eyes, the smell. And then when we're tasting it, we really, like, even if you're biting into a strawberry, which you may think it's not the most decadent thing on the face of this earth, or you bite into a nectarine, you're really feeling, experiencing. One of the things that I do often, for the past few weeks, I've been doing pretty often, is making the heavy metal detox smoothie, which is wild blueberries, banana, orange juice, barley grass juice powder, some more wild blueberry powder, and spirulina. Spirulina, I just take it as a capsule, right? Because I cannot stand the fishy. It's an algae, so it has a fishy, oceany smell, right? So I cannot really, because I'm vegetarian, it becomes very overpowering for me. But the taste of that wild, and then it has cilantro as well. So there's a contrast, right? Like you cannot expect cilantro in fruit. Just imagine fruits, and now there's a cilantro taste coming through. But I love it. I love it. And then I watched I watched Medical Medium make the liver rescue smoothie, which is a mix of this with pitaya, right? The fruit pitaya. And he looks at the color of it, and he gets excited about the color. He says, he shows the jar and says, look at the color of this thing. And you can see the vibrant pinkish red that wild blueberries and the red dragon fruit has, right, in there. And he's like so excited. I'm that excited. Like when I see that glass full of that reddish purple color, right? That gives me joy. Like already before the glass comes to my mouth, it's like you're looking at the color itself, the vibrancy of the color. So that's how consciousness is. You begin to enjoy everything. Like no matter, like Eckhart in one of the videos that we watched on the Bhagavad Gita, he talks about cleaning the table, right? Are you feeling the cloth against the table? Are you feeling when you spray something? Uh, can you feel the smell of the spray, right? Can you enjoy that? So he's talking about that whole action, how much of presence we can give to that action of just wiping the table. And that's the unfoldment, right? You agree, April, on this? So out of your conversation, I thought of another question, April. You talked about all these modalities, right? Can you explain to us what are the different modalities? Like when you say massage therapy, how does massage therapy? So what I want people to do is, if you don't have a presence practice, you can go to a massage therapist and get this benefit from the massage therapist, right? So can you explain some of this to us, please? Because we've never discussed it before.
Yeah, I'm not exactly sure what, actually, I do know what caused me to be a massage therapist. I was going to say I'm not sure. So what happened is my first husband, what he would do is he would request that he had his back rubbed to go to sleep almost every single night. And I hated it. I hated it with a passion. But I was married 12 years and I did it so long, so much. And I would do it with my eyes closed. Like I'd be like this. So it made me really good at it. I can find a knot with my fingers like you wouldn't be able to believe. And even though I really didn't enjoy that, I enjoyed the fact of I had this amazing ability to find problem areas, meaning I could help somebody because I could find their problem area. So I went and became a massage therapist. And massage, number one, just human touch is very healing. we don't really understand, I think, the power of a hug. Touching somebody else in, embracing and showing care, showing kindness, showing love, just a simple hug. So and then, the touching, but then massage is actually equal to exercise. So as you're working the body and, you have to work it a certain way, you want to come from the feet up and you want to go from the head down so that all the toxins, it actually moves all the toxins in the body. So now I'm also detoxing the body, right? And what happened is being moved on this spiritual journey, which at the time I didn't realize was happening, is I would do massage on people and I would get exhausted. I would just be so tired. So what I did was I took Reiki. I got Reiki energy healing. I took Reiki 1 and 2 so that now when I'm doing massage, not only am I doing massage, they're getting the benefit of it being like exercise. They're getting the benefit of it detoxing. They're also getting human contact. Now I'm putting God's light into them. So they're no longer taking my energy, they're taking Reiki.
So what does Reiki do? I've heard of it.
Yeah. So what Reiki is it's an ancient healing energy. And the concept of Reiki is that God's light, God's energy comes through you and out the chakras of your hands or your fingertips. It is the same concept of Jesus laying his hands on people and healing them. So God's energy, source energy, creator's energy comes through you into the people. You don't need to tell it where to go because it has infinite intelligence. It knows where to go. It does its own thing. So you're just the conduit, you're the middleman. And so that I started doing that. So you could do massage, it's very healing. You could get Reiki, which is energy work. And you could move that forward to getting like now from Reiki, what I did was I learned about the chakra system. So now I've moved from doing that to doing chakra energy work, where you open the chakras, you imagine negative energy coming out, and you put in again source energy. So now we're healing the chakra system. So my life was literally like, oh, you learn this, okay, do that. Oh, you learn this, okay, do that. It was just, one thing after another. And then let's see, what are the other, I learned another healing energy called Amadeus. It's the same thing. It comes from Brazil, but it's the same concept. This one had different symbols, but it's exact same concept. And then I also learned, hypnotherapy, which you can combine the energy work with the subconscious mind and the conscious mind. You'll have to remind me of what else you want to talk about. Yeah.
So can you do the hypnotherapy and Reiki on Zoom, like virtual setting, or do you need the person in front of you?
No, you can do it over Zoom. I've actually done some, and I've done the hypnosis with the energy work, with the chakra work. So I have this ability where it's an ability that I just acquired. It's not something I trained in. I now have the ability where I can basically scan your energy field, and it'll tell me like where to go in the energy field to add the healing in. And it is something that can be done over Zoom. All of it boils down to, not massage therapy is energy. just kind of in a different form, but it all actually boils down to energy work. One way or another, we are looking at energy work, whether I'm doing Reiki or Amadeus or chakra work. I'm also trained in auricular acupuncture. That's energy work. So it's some form of healing. Eileen, so you've had them over the phone? Yeah, you can do them over the phone too. Yep, you can do that. So
Awesome. This is a lot of information, April. Thank you. Thank you so much for sharing.
sorry, I got so much. The sound meditation, that's energy too. You know about the sound
Yes.
meditation. You can
Yes.
explain.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Did you want to talk about your modalities that you've used, Eileen?
Yeah, I'm trying to remember. They're recorded on the podcast, but
Oh, you talked about on your podcast?
yeah. The whole like second half of it is all of like the tools that you can use to for presence practice, but none of them are the things that
April
April
talked
brought
about.
up.
Yes.
But inner body awareness, that was one that I talked about, which I mentioned in the podcast recording that was very difficult for me in the beginning, if you remember that. I'm like, that's just not something I could do. I can do it now. I'm capable of doing it now. It just took me a really long time to figure it out. But that the like you mentioned, like the mindful brushing of your teeth, but taking a mindful shower. I tried to give a lot of things that for people who are not used to meditation, because meditation is my preferred method of, bringing myself completely to the present moment. But the people that I'm, reaching out to, they don't necessarily have that practice. And so I was trying to think of all of the ways, conscious breathing. There's a whole list of them that I gave, probably close to 10 of them, of just things that you can do that aren't very challenging. And most of them can be easy for even a child to do.
And you've used other, you've done the massage therapy.
Oh,
is
yes.
Is it a specific kind of massage therapy?
I do 3 types. So I do like what most people are probably familiar with is like a deep tissue massage. So I do that. And then I also do craniosacral therapy, which
And
is,
what does that do?
that's like an energy work. So there's not it's a holding. And so the therapist like holds the different chakra areas of your body. They hold it, and they can get information that's kind of stored in your body, I guess. And then they hold it, they give it, space, and then it can like clear it out. So I actually just had that done this past weekend. And then I also get reflexology, which is a massage of the different points on your feet. And I think you can actually do reflexology of the hands too, but the therapist that I go to does my feet.
And nothing else. That's it. You've tried no acupuncture or any other.
We don't have acupuncture therapists where I am.
Okay.
I live in a small state. And so we don't have one that I would trust to go to. There are some in the next state over, but I just haven't done that.
Okay.
But I do chiropractic care and Reiki I've done over the phone as well. So I do want to try acupuncture, but I haven't done that yet.
And as always, thank you so much, Eileen and April.
When we meet up, I'll have to bring my needles.
Yes.
So mine is auricular, meaning it's in the ear. So your feet and your hands have the reflexology points, but you can actually hit every single point in the body in the ear.
Interesting.
So I don't do the full body because that takes 4 years of schooling, but I can hit every single point in the body on the ear.
Wow.
So when we meet up, remind me.
Your ears have to be ready. Yeah, that's amazing that how many different modalities are available to heal ourselves. It's the dedication that is needed. And I feel like some people are pretty dedicated, right? That's what happens on this path. Like what I'm hearing April say is once you turn a little bit this way, then you go from one thing to another, to going to Abraham Hicks, to going to Eckhart Tolle. Things open up by themselves, right? That's what I'm hearing. So Sujata is asking a question, April. How has consciousness flowering further enhanced the healing practices learned through a method? Thank you.
So I can say that back when I started doing the massage therapy, so we're looking at like 21 years ago now, when I did the massage therapy. And then that led me to Reiki, which led me to everything else. I was in the very beginning stages. I had no idea what I was getting into. I had no idea that it was going to land me here. I had no clue. Sorry, and that's my oldest daughter is here. So I can say that I just thought it was so cool. It was just so cool, right? This was like awesome. And then when I would get a client for massage therapy that, had a genuine issue, then I would get this deep desire, like, okay, let me heal them. Let me heal them. Let me make them better, right? I always wanted to make somebody better. And then as I started really learning this more and, following this path more, how do I explain this? Like, it's not that I didn't want to heal them, but I started to realize more that it wasn't me healing them. It was Source healing them through me, and allowing that to happen, allowing that to take place. And essentially all healing really is the person giving the healer permission to let them be healed. So the flowering happens in that when I become more present, when I become more whole, when I become more in my presence power, more connected to Source, then what is able to flow through me is more. I can say stronger, but it is more pure and more genuine, and it has a mind and a consciousness of its own. So that's the flowering of it. That's how it is further enhanced, is the more in line I am with Source, the more I back up as a person, and the more I allow this to just flow. And it does enhance your healing practices.
Thank you so much, April. Now, my thought would be, since we moved out of the golden age where there was no healing required, everybody was already awakened, right? So I wouldn't even know if, I couldn't even say if consciousness flowered, did it further enhance the healing practice? So my question is, were we in that golden age, weren't we more wiser? Weren't we humanity or whatever creaturehood existed at that time? Because it was the golden age where every human was experiencing loving kindness. I feel we have declined. right? And now we are picking it back up, and there's more and more, like all of us can experience this, like an initiation kind of phase, right? That something is happening on this earth right now, in this moment. And like people have been saying, spiritual teachers have been saying for 100, 200 years, right? Like whether you talk about the Sufis, each one experienced their own awakening, and they experience that there's something beautiful happening on the earth. And we are experiencing that with Eckhart's teachings, right? We are saying that, yes, something amazing is going to happen, something mind-blowing is going to happen if all of us connect up and can experience this shared consciousness, which we do during group meditation. Group meditation is like the exemplary in kind of replicating that healing energy, right? That we can get together and then experience that togetherness and heal from that. So what do you think of that, April? Do you think we declined and now we are picking back up?
So again, I'm not sure what it is we're doing here, Poonam, because I was thinking we need to ask Kelly, like what did happen to us? I was thinking that. I was thinking like, you know, why did we have Atlantis in this golden age, or even if it was Atlantis or not, but why did we have that? And then like, how did we do that? And why did we do that? I think the same questions. I do think though that there's a gap in the story somewhere. And I don't know if that gap is in the Dead Sea Scrolls or where it's at. So we had this golden era. And then the next thing you know, we're in this industrial revolution, you know, building factories and cars.
Cement.
And yeah, cement, just more cement. And I do think it was a decline when science and religion separated and they said they can no longer be together. I think there was a huge decline in other, you know, civilizations. Apparently, they still teach the children to learn and live through their heart first, not their mind. We are most certainly taught to live from our mind. That I think is where we have the decline. That is where I think we, you know, we lost that connection, is when we were taught that if you can't see it, taste it, hear it, smell it, it's not real. And I think absolutely it was a decline, but I do think that we are on the opposite path now, that we are going back to, you're going to sense it first, then you're going to see it or taste it, smell it. And I'm waiting. I'm all for it. I want this.
And you're the best student because you've evolved so well. Like you've made quantum leaps. So you're like one of the best students to exemplify that. So thank you.
Yeah, I had a hypnosis once, a long time ago with my my best friend. We went and got a hypnosis once, and the lady looked at me and she said that. She said, "Wow, you are not even the same person that you were." And I was just kind of thrown back by what she said. But I guess if you look at my story, then I guess that's true. You know, it's been a crazy path.
Eileen, what do you have to say to what Sujata is saying? How has consciousness flowering further enhanced the healing practices?
I just think consciousness enhances everything, not doing things subconsciously. It just is. But I was going to say two things that weren't necessarily to that question, but one, I had goosebumps when April was just talking because, like, even my own path was challenging, let's put it that way. But as soon as I like heard her say that and I made that like connection, the instant thought in my mind was that I'm grateful for all of it. every bit of it. And so that's totally not who I would have been 2 years ago. And so it's like instant goosebumps. And I also wanted to add something that Lakshmi said in the comments. I think she was referring to when April was talking about healing. She said, when I'm doing healing, I remind myself that I am the practitioner and the other person is the healer. Healing is happening in them. And I'd never heard someone say that before, like say it in that way. And it was like making my mind think about like sessions that I've had, like cranial sacral sessions that I've had. And I'm thinking that totally makes sense. Like she's the person that's providing me this, this service that she's trained in, but I'm the one that has to accept that and make that happen and heal. That is it. I don't really have anything to add to Sujata's question.
Thank you so much.
There's another one though, but I'll bring it over.
Sure. Mm-hmm. While you bring it over, I'll comment. I think April already answered, right? How has consciousness flowering further enhanced the healing practices learned through a method? Like the enhancement is in turning up what Eckhart calls turning up the dimmer switch, right? If I take Lakshmi's, and thank you, Lakshmi, for that analogy. If I take Lakshmi's analogy, the practitioner has to dial up their dimmer switch to 200, 300% power, right? Their pure consciousness, and pure consciousness is flowing, and that is what is the healing, right? It almost is like what Eckhart says, a log that is lit up coming against another log, and it lights up the second log. Is that a great picture, April? Is that the picture? Like it almost is like a log lighting up another log, right? So. So Sujata asks, can someone be healed without them knowing it, without their direct consent, just by the power of intention of the healer, or even without a specific intention? I'll let you speak to it, April. Thank you.
It's kind of a trick question in a way. Because I don't want to say no, because it has happened. It can happen. But there are some, like so there was this lady that, another thing that I did in my life is while I was doing massage, I was working in a salon. So I decided to also become a nail tech. Well, I did that. So these are all forms of income that I was trying to make while raising 3 girls and going to college. So the lady that I was taught from, she was doing my nails one day, and I realized when I got up that my back stopped hurting. And I looked at her and I said, Kelly, you have healing energy. She's like, what? I said, you have healing powers. So did I consent to that? Not verbally, not consciously, but did my soul agree? Yes. Did my spirit agree? Yes. So that's why I'm saying a little bit of a trick question. I think spiritually and on a soul level, you do consent. Did she heal me without knowing it, without having a specific intention? Yes. So, but I can say the more intention you have, the better. That's the turning up the dial. I have more intention to heal you. I'm, more direct in sending that energy to you. But ultimately, I want to say that yes, someone could be healed without their consent or without the specific intention, but I'm going to also say that your soul, your soul, your higher self is allowing that and is agreeing to it. You're just not aware, consciously aware of it. Okay. By the intention of the healer, or even without, yeah. So I'm going to say yes, but your soul always, it always knows. And see, here's the trick thing about healing is if the illness is meant to teach you something and is part of your path, the illness will stay. You won't be able to heal it away if the illness has a purpose. And that's a really hard thing for us to accept as humans, as, why did you heal me and not them, or them and not me? But if that illness has a specific purpose, it won't be healed. It's not meant to be healed. Okay.
Mind-blowing answers, April. I agree. Thank you. Thank you so much. I'll go to Eileen and then I'll comment about what April has stated. Go ahead, Eileen.
Yeah, I was just, as soon as she said that last bit, I was like, if that makes sense based on our previous conversations. But that I'm thinking, again, based on previous conversations we've had here, that then that would, it's not that could not be healed, but that wouldn't be able to be healed until that lesson was learned, right? Like it's just gonna hang out. It's gonna stick around until it happens.
Or the purpose is served. And for us on the human level, it's very frustrating because it's like, well, why could you not save my mom? Why could you not save my uncle? But there's a purpose in that, and that purpose radiates all the way out to the lady at the gas station that knew that person, that came in and got their coffee. Like, it radiates out so far. If there's a purpose, then in this question, that person could not be healed. But that has to do with your soul mission, your soul purpose. That has to do with the reason that God has you here.
That contract.
Right.
And I want to read something that Marla just sent while April was speaking. So I'm like, it's one of those nights. Marla said, or maybe our awakening and deepening of consciousness is a cleaning out of the buildup of smudge from the inside of the pipe or hose so that the water can flow with more force, because she was talking about how previously that wouldn't conscious enhancing life be like opening or turning on a faucet to love God source can fully flow. And then she made that comment while April was talking, and I was like, yeah, like it makes me think about like the conversation that we had a couple weeks ago about the post that I made about Greg Braden's healing, the book about healing, and how he talks about how people really do die of a broken heart. They have hurts that happen to them and they're not healed in the moment or healed at all. And then they, it's like, it's killing us. And that is just like she's saying, like that consciousness is helping to clear out that hurt, clear out that buildup. It all just connects.
Do you have something else, Eileen?
No, and if I did, I wouldn't remember right now.
This is synchronicity, right? Like everybody's on LinkedIn, like whether it's Lakshmi, Sujata asking the question, Lakshmi's connecting to April, to you. It's Mind-blowing. And today was the day that I did not have questions, so everyone supported me. All right. So can someone be healed without them knowing it? What April said is exactly the truth. Is because, and we talked about resistance, and I'll come back to that resistance again. Last week we talked about resistance, right, April? If that human being is holding any form of resistance, that resistance pattern is what is causing the illness, right? And if the resistance exists, no matter how much the healer is directing intention, they are not going to heal, because that resistance is the vibrational energy. Like Dr. Joe Dispenza says, right, the thought is the electric charge, and your emotion, the resistance, is causing the attraction out of the quantum field. So if you have resistance, what are you going to attract? Negativity. Low frequency will bring in illness. One of the things that in both books, whether it is, what was the first one? I don't remember, but my most recent book by Dr. Joe Dispenza is Becoming Super Natural. And in there, Dr. Joe Dispenza actually shows, when we talk about chakras, which is like the lowest is Muladhara, right? Then comes the sacral. So chakra energies 1, 2, where number 1 is the color red, number 2 is orange, number 3 is yellow, number 4 is like almost a heart center, right? But the lower 3 are related to the low frequency vibration. And he says that the first chakra is, I think, related to food, like very earthy things that gets us earthbound, right, into the external world. The 2 and 3 are where guilt, shame, all these feelings, those vibrational frequencies exist. And in the lower, when there's imbalance in those 3 chakras, is when we are dominated by these feelings of guilt, shame, anger, frustration, depression, anxiety, fear. And when we are vibrating at those, we will manifest illness, right? And that's why, like April says, the balancing of the chakras is so necessary, right? And he shows, he has a picture of like those circles, like you take a ball, just think of one green ball showing your heart center, like a blue ball, and those balls are like somewhere awry in space. And when you're lined up, right, when you're balanced, everything is lined up. Like your red center and the orange center and the yellow center, all of it is lined up. So I agree with April. One of the things that I listened to, and it is incredible that it is, I listened to it today, right before this session, and this is here where Sujata is asking this question. And I think it's chapter 12 of that book, Becoming Supernatural, where Dr. Joe Dispenza talks about how the intention of peace and harmony, like when really strong meditators have that intention, he said between 83 to 85, they had that intention, and look how much peace came into the world, right? And I think even in the 90s, he said 7,000 people in India group meditated on intention of peace and harmony. And I think that's when the wall, in Germany, didn't they bring down the wall around that area? Around that time, like in the 90s, it happened with Ronald Reagan, right? As the President Ronald Reagan as the president, that the wall came down. So yes, intention, right? human beings have that power, but they have to be strong meditators, and they can affect the electromagnetic frequency. Everything is frequency, 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 right? So I have a question that came up when Eileen was speaking about this faucet thing, April. One of the phrases that Abraham Hicks uses is, we pinch ourselves off, right? It almost is like, hose and how you pinch the hose off and the water is not flowing. She uses the term, we pinch ourselves off, right? So you want to give examples of how we pinch ourselves off from this flow of flowering of consciousness coming through us, or the consciousness just flowing through us. What are the ways we pinch ourselves off?
I'm going in and get working.
Negative thinking is the main one, and that's the main one that, well, Eckhart talks about, but Abraham also talks about the negative thinking patterns. That for me is the one that I find the most, and also to me, the low self-esteem is an epidemic. Just the low self-worth, low self-esteem, that instantly pinches us off from the flow of the universe, from that infinite abundance, from what you were talking about when you first, opened that, there should be enough for everybody. Essentially, there should be, really, there should be no lack. And Bettino Massaro says this. He says, source is an infinite, unlimited creation. This is what source is. He said the most amazing thing, though, is that humans have created the one thing that source is not, and that is lack. That is the one thing it is not, but that is the one thing we are afraid of in all ways. Lack of love, lack of money, lack of clothes, lack of food, all of it. That's the one thing source is not. So we pinch ourselves off mostly by our limiting beliefs, our negative thoughts, not thinking that we're worthy in some way or another. That's that unconscious mind running our life. For me, I think those are the biggest ways that we do it. There are other multiple, little ways, but those are the biggest ones that if you wanted to find, sorry, my grandson's here. If you wanted to find that infinite source within you, those are the ones that I would start working on changing, that you have infinite worth.
Thank you so much, April. Beautiful. She's on fire today,
I agree.
April. How about yourself, Eileen? How do we pinch ourselves off?
I was definitely going to say the negative self-talk, or like the stories that we create, those like stories in our heads, which I love that word now, like calling it a story, because I'm like, oh my gosh, I've been telling myself stories all my life. Oh boy. But I think also like the idea of comparison. So like that's something that humans do a lot, like comparing ourselves to like others, which is so ridiculous. I actually don't even want to go any deeper into that than saying the word comparison right now, because it's something that's really annoying me lately. I don't want to be there. Also, judgment.
Why is it annoying you?
Oh, she's going to ask me anyway, even though I said I don't want to talk about it right now. It's really bothering me at the moment because I am a school teacher by trade. And so that's what I was trained in. That's what I went to school for. I've been doing it as my profession for 20 years of my life, almost half of my life. And it's just infuriating to me now that we are constantly comparing kids, like constantly comparing children. The fact that anything is standardized, let alone forced to be standardized, is absolutely ridiculous. Ridiculous. So it's definitely something that's really bothering me more and more as each day goes by.
'Cause you're going to be the change maker, right?
I'm trying, but
So
that's
that's, that's,
going to have positive consequences and
yeah.
maybe some not so positive.
Well, that's like the body mass scale. Like if I go to the doctors and you look at the body mass scale, apparently I'm obese. Really? I'm obese? Because it's standardized, right?
Yeah.
That I'm obese. I'm may not be, as skinny as I would like, but I'm certainly not obese. Yeah, the comparison. And I think there's some good to that as well. I mean, I know like children don't get diagnosed with learning disabilities till the end of second grade, which I wish it was earlier, but so you need some standard to show you, is this child actually behind or
But behind what? That's my thing. It's like behind what? Because kids, I'm not saying that kids don't have disabilities. I'm a special education teacher. I'm not saying
Yeah.
that they don't or that they don't need help, but what's wrong with providing help without labeling them?
Mm.
And who's
Yeah.
to say who's behind and where does that come from? That comes from some type of standardization that, has been done, but based on who?
Right.
I don't
Well,
wanna
and
go
Poonam has said to
into
us
it, but-
too, what if they miss a year? What's the big damage,
Exactly.
And they will show us. And one of the things that during in 2019, when Eckhart, I think I've talked about this, right, Eileen? We were actually going to make it maybe next week. It almost is time to wrap up, but maybe we can make it a topic next time. You wanted to dedicate one session to education, right? Reforms we talk about police reform. There needs to be reform of education.
Yes. It's part of
right?
why we started our podcast. Yes.
Because what if that preschooler, pre-K child already learned about presence power, already learned about, doing 1 + 1 = 2 and writing my ABCs is actually not that important. What is more important is that I develop this muscle power of emotional intelligence, right? Of loving kindness, of compassion, gratitude. That is more important in my life because it will lead me into the right path, right? Instead of all of us at 20, 30, 40 years later, we tried a few things, we failed at it, right? And then we tried something else. Then now we find like the road to success, right? Now we know how to open the doors. Like the next door is opening and the next door, April gave us like the best news possible before we started this session, right? I'll let you finish. I didn't mean to digress you. Go ahead, finish.
No, it's fine. No, I really do think that there's change that needs to happen, and I'm trying to be part of that, but it's definitely an uphill battle. But it would be nice if all kids were able to progress in their own timeline, My own children didn't learn things at the same time, yet one's made to think that they're, something's wrong with them, and the other one's made to think that, they're amazing. Like it's just the whole thing just really irks me, as if you couldn't tell.
You good? Thank you, Eileen. So I will wrap it up. It's been an incredibly amazing session. I thank Sujata, Dani, and Lakshmi for contributing, Marla as well, online, as well as Kelly, that he was present. So heartwarming that everyone was present online with us. To April and Eileen, one of the wishes, so, you know, when Dean Graziosi mentioned this mess into a message, so when I thought of creating this course based on limiting beliefs, like to enhance the book, right? The book is just 100 pages, so it's very compressed, and most of you have learned already, right? I've taught for the past year and a half. I've talked about year or so. I've talked about it during group meditation, during the Facebook Live Q&As, actually almost 2 years. So when he said mess into the message, he actually said, get a scene out of your life that actually applies to this, right? It's not like you can tell your whole story. You have to get like a small scene out of your life that applies to, like for me, in my case, it would be if I were talking about a course based on limiting beliefs, right? And so I went into my past, which I don't think about my past very much. I've little drizzle here, drizzle there. I've talked about the fact that I actually was brought up in a very poor, I mean, we were really poor. Like we had leaking roofs, we would not have enough money. Like I would have like maybe 2 sets of uniforms and not any clothes, maybe 1 pair of clothes that I could go out. I had to wear the same pair, like wash it and wear it again. So there was no, oh, I wore one dress today and then next day, if I went out again, I would wear something different, right? So there were 1 or 2 pairs of clothes, decent clothes that I could go out in if I went out to visit. So there was very, very little money, right? For that person, and this is a story of every immigrant, right, to this country. For that person that was born in such a poor condition, transcended the limitations of where I was born, how I was born, what family I was born in, to move here to the United States. How many people are already in the United States, born in the United States, and not transcending their limitations, right? And this is the power that I want y'all to take back. All the people that are, you know, instead of getting frustrated about all the, like I'm in Texas, so there's constant talk about whatever immigration is going on the border, right? That's the biggest discussion that goes on in Texas. So instead of thinking of all the immigrants that are coming across the border, or anybody that's immigrating, flying in and immigrating into this country, instead of thinking about all of that, think about immigrating yourself, right, to a space. Go into the transcendent dimension, go into this flowering, be the flowering of consciousness. Look at the examples, look at April, look at Eileen, look at Marla, look at Terry Potter, right? These are your fellow members that 2 years back, they were somebody different. In 2 years, it's just like, in the timeless realm, it's just like a snap, right? And look where they are right now. And look where they're going to go. It's just the beginning. You don't even know where they're going to, what they're going to bloom into. They're right now, like the bud is opening, right? Now let's see how we flower. And that is my wish, that we flower as a group, that we become that lavender field, right? That somebody looks at this group and goes, look at that lavender field and look at the beautiful fragrance that is coming from this lavender field. One person is doing mindfulness, one person is doing child conscious parenting, another person is doing psychic healing and Reiki and different methods of modalities of healing. Lakshmi is doing different modalities of healing. And look at the flowering within this group. That's what I want. Bring in abundance. All of us are going to bring in abundance to each other and to the whole group, right? As we, and multiply it, right, out into your city, into your country, into your world. So deeply humble, April and Eileen. Incredible session. So many blessings. Have a fantastic evening. Much love. Good night.